Welcome to the Rosebud Sessions, the podcast that delves into the stories of individuals from Teesside, exploring the roots of their success and the driving forces behind their achievements. Our goal is to not only share these compelling narratives, but also to inspire change by showcasing diverse stories that broaden perspectives and challenge beliefs. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of our podcast here at Rise. So with our first episode, we thought that it'd be appropriate to start with one of the directors here at Rise, Dr. Iain Caldwell. Would you like to introduce yourself, Iain?
I would, Tom, thank you. Yes, I'm Dr. Iain Caldwell. I'm a chartered psychologist, and I've been studying and working in and around better performances and high performance for the last decade. And I have a consultancy organisation that I run, which is the Association of Practice-Based Approach, and got involved with Rise as well. So that's a brief description of me.
Fantastic. We're on the tail end of your entire, the plethora of your professional experience, but we'll still take it. So, other organisation that the other people might be aware of is that you were previously involved with is Mind, which specialises in mental health, which you migrated over to Let's Connect. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Let's Connect, which we deliver services in Teesside and County Durham, and I've also been one of the directors, and I established Starfish Health and Wellbeing, and we run services across Teesside and the Midlands, and lots of other things like Larch Social Enterprise Development in Hartlepool and Redcar. I've been involved with Larch for 2 years, and a number of other organisations. So yeah, I'm fully immersed in voluntary sector, social enterprise, and some commercial training, research type companies as well.
Brilliant. And are you from the town? I know you are, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm. This is typically like Hartlepool, born and bred.
Strong in the arm.
I have left and lived in places beginning with L, but only 2, London and Liverpool. But yeah, and live in a small, 2 small villages in Hartlepool at the moment.
Did they begin with L?
No. I don't know if that spoils that. We should rename
a little bit. Let's move on. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of your journey up to this point in your professional and academic career, how did that start, and when did it start?
So yeah, the story goes that I was somebody who was living in a very disadvantaged area and dropped out of school, and didn't really have very good experiences at school from entry till whenever I left, which is we're still uncertain. Nobody really knows. And then I was in the wilderness for 5 years as a NEET, not in education, employment and training. And then at the age of 21, I believe, 22, decided to enrol at college and study GCSEs. And then I stayed in higher education or further education until last year. Which is, I'm now 52. So about a 30-year journey, and changed my mindset. The most important thing for me was to think, what if I start to think differently and then behave differently? What could I achieve? Because I'm someone who's unemployed, got no qualifications, no future, no one believes in me, I don't believe in me, everyone's wrote me off, everyone said never amount to anything. And then I started to create an idea in my mind. Excuse me. And the idea was, what if I took a different path? What if my path wasn't the standard path? And what if I went an unusual, non-traditional route to transforming myself? So really, that was the main thing to think about, transforming. That was a secret. I worked on it. I gathered stories. I gathered evidence of people who'd done that. And then I tested it. I took small steps. I took big risks for me, going into education without being ever successful in that area, to think, well, could I get 2 GCSEs, and then could I get access course, and then could I get a degree, and then could I get a PGCE, and could I get a master's degree, diplomas in therapy, studied a range of different therapies, supervision courses, management courses, and then went on to complete a doctorate, and then after that registered as and become a chartered psychologist. So in a sense, I'm always asking that question, what happened? But definitely mindset is absolutely key. Having the right people as well. As soon as you start to think, I want to be this, something different, it's starting to have the right people and culture around as well.
So, there's a few things I want to go back to, but initially I want to ask quite a direct question. So you said you're in the wilderness for 5 years. And then you decided one day that I'm going to, you did a self-assessment and went, this isn't great, I'm not doing great, I want to achieve more. And then you put a plan together or started researching and developing stories and gathering resources and tools to change that. Now, was that something that somebody told you to do, that you learned from somebody, or did you just decide one day that that's what you wanted to do? And if that is the case, what is it that has allowed you to do both the venturing off into the wilderness after school, and then all of a sudden turn everything on its head and completely change your life and have the necessary sort of, let's say, function and strength of thought and conviction to be able to understand what it was you needed to do to go on that journey and succeed?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that happened. One was that all the way through that it was a distressing childhood and dysfunctional childhood, and lots of different things. Experienced domestic violence and lots of single parent for a while, and disadvantaged poverty, a whole host of things in there, and elements of madness, and with a range of people, including myself. And
we'll go back to that.
Yeah, and so one of the interesting things was that I sort of became aware of something. So this happened. I said to my grandfather, who was quite intelligent, an observant man, somebody in my class has begun to become a fisherman. I don't even know that was a profession that people still did, but someone wanted to do it. They wanted to go on boats and be a fisherman. And I said, I'll never be able to do that. And he said, why? And I sort of thought, I was always a thinker. I was probably spending a lot of time thinking about nothing, but I was a thinker. But then I did this. I became aware of a thought experiment, which is, if I've got 2 options, option A and option B, if I choose option A and option B, I always fail. If a friend of mine, imaginary friend, hypothetical situation, chooses option A or chooses option B, they either one of them would be right or both. So I came up with lots of scenarios and realised no matter what I did, I would always fail. So therefore, I couldn't trust my mental framework that was developed. I didn't use any of this language. It would have been a lot more unsophisticated. But mental framework that existed in my mind was given to me by my family, who'd had a series of disadvantages and
so your beliefs came from your environment?
Yeah, and my mother, who sadly passed away 2 years ago, said that there is no such thing as a happy family. It's an illusion, it's a lie, don't believe people. And you are dealt with a hand of cards, and you have to accept it.
And we're getting out of here.
But that was her life, and that's what she experienced. So in a way, that was her truth, because it was true, and it wasn't very good, and whatever happened. But I was given that legacy, which is culture and mindset. So I became aware of mindset, and you could change that, and you could correct that. That's why I went into study psychology. I was a work in progress. I was a broken heel. I wanted to work on myself. And realised culture is really important, because I was getting these stories. My family come from Glasgow, and I'd never been to Glasgow until my 40s, I believe, late 40s. But I lived in Glasgow growing up, mentally, and it was a poor part of Glasgow, and it was people who really struggled, and it was like all these stories held my belief systems, and I was like, I need to change that culture. I wasn't even part of it. It was like I need to hear better stories. I need to meet different people, and I need to move away from people who reinforce disadvantages. So I think mindset, becoming aware of that, and then I think if you remove your mindset, realise that you are, and that goes into my doctoral research eventually as well, that if you have a series of barriers and you remove them, then you can create something else. It's up to you. And then the exciting, terrifying risk thing is, what do you dare dream? What do you dare dream? So I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write comedy, sitcoms. I wanted to write novels and screenplays. And then I started to do that. I started to write, and I've continued to do that. And it took a long time before I even told anyone. It was the biggest secret. And then on top of that, I wanted to become a psychologist, which I eventually did come. It wasn't like my only goal. I went off and did lots of different things, so that's why it took 30 years. And I'm still working on the writing. But I didn't dare tell anyone about the psychology. I didn't dare, even worse than that, is that I've got a creative element in me that I would like to explore and develop, no matter how good or bad it is.
Why didn't you tell anyone?
Just terrified. I think if you grow up, my reference points are people who've not really haven't been successful in creative enterprises or academia or even school in general, and from a lot of the stories that really held my attention in life, that really struggled. Now, if you penetrate that a bit further and explore it, that's my go-to default places. It's a terrible life and everyone I know is terrible. And then you just look a little bit further away. It's not true, but it does take a little bit of going, well, is there other people? Oh, yes, but I don't reference them. Mm. So the way I was understanding the world myself was quite distorted. And I needed to change that. I needed to have some good people around me. I needed to change the way I could see. And what I dare dream, have a dream, have an ambition, and tell people. I would be at the job centre signing on, and they go, right, if you're lucky, we might get you a sweep and brush in a factory, but, you've got a lot of competition and you're not that good. And I'm like, it's okay, I'm going to become a psychologist. They'll be like, oh, we'll think it's a little referral here. I think you might have had an episode. So it's like, genuinely, it's like, that's it. I mean, I did go, and I said I want to be a ski instructor, and they did laugh. Mm. And I said, no, there is such a thing as a ski instructor. I've been skiing, I went skiing in school. And they were like, oh, I know you can train to become a ski instructor. Have you more? And I found that out myself. And then it was like, I need to do this work, because they're just seeing me as a failure. Mm-hmm. I see myself as a failure, and if I don't change, I'm going to continue to do that. So I've got to become different. What I did want to do was go away and then come back miraculously transformed, and that was my dream.
But where does that come from? Where does the reflection and the self-assessment and the understanding of a broader sort of macro view, like when, for example, somebody in the job centre will say, no, you're this, and you having that acute awareness of your own beliefs about yourself and your beliefs about others and the impact that is going to have on your trajectory in life. Let's be real. How many people do you think actually have the capacity to be able to think like that now? And what is it in you that, because we know the answer to the first part, what is it in you that has made you different, that has allowed you to separate yourself with only your own mind to move away from that path?
Yeah.
What are the skills?
Well, the first bit is an idea that you can do it, and I think that's it. I do have, and if anyone really knows me, that I can be quite relentless, and I can't be. I'm not really bothered if I have to go against trends and groups of people. And I tested that out, and I sort of created different versions. I thought I can be doing something different. One of the things that I grew up with certain rules in life, what was given me, which answers some of this. One was honesty. You've got to be honest. You've got to be hard work. My mother said she'd be in a wheelchair. She would have arthritis, would eat from her body, and she'd be in a wheelchair at a certain age. And she never did that. She worked her way through agony and pain. And at the end of it, her body was free of arthritis because it had riddled through every bone over a 20-year period. And she would still walk and still went to work and had 2 or 3 jobs. Hard work. And she had an idea, and she told me about self-improvement. It was seeded to her off somebody else. Read the dictionary, learn a word a day, and there was a copy of Crime and Punishment by Nietzsche. Of a household that didn't read, a very strange book to be lying around, and it's a cotton covered fabric on the outside. It's lovely. It's like a pinkish red. I still own that. And I thought, well, I'll read the dictionary. I'll expand my vocabulary.
Not Nietzsche.
I did read Nietzsche, and then I went on and read a lot of classics and Kafka and other things. And I never read anything until I was 19. But I had an idea. Someone's given me the idea of self-improvement. You can learn a language. You can read. You can read a dictionary. You can buy one for 99p, and you can pick up a word a day. And then you expand your reading. So reading was really important. The idea that you could learn new words and understand the I love definitions. I do it all the time. I always, when I'm writing or helping anyone write anything, it's about defining and understanding the language that defines the way that you understand and explore the world, and you can have a wider range, a larger vocabulary with a greater ability to explore and understand the world, and it just becomes electrifyingly exciting. It does genuinely. Buy the dictionary, you read it every day, and then you think, what's the possibilities? You can improve yourself. Always work hard and be honest. That like moral compass, that ability to do that. And I'm not saying I always was hard working. I wasn't. I spent 5 years doing nothing. I'm not saying I always told the truth and other things. But when I didn't, I felt it. I was aware of it. So I had to work on that. So I think them couple of seeds really help with a tenaciousness and thinking that I'll go out. I'll go out fighting. At least I'll go out fighting, and I'll go out reading, fighting, and I'll go out with a better vocabulary fighting, and I'll work really hard, which I do work hard, and exercise I think's helped. I run 5 days a week, and I walk the other 2. So I'm up at 6:30, 6:20, out of the house 7 days a week, regardless of what's going on. That's where I'm at. I'm doing that type of thing. So I think that discipline, you're just starting to layer in them skills. They said, seed ideas, develop some skills that lead you to develop some other skills, and then you're realising that you need to change your mental framework, and you need to then be around different types of people. I withdrew from a large social crowd so I could explore that. And when I withdrew, I met somebody who become like a mentor. I was in a relationship with this person for about 5 years. Of this world I wanted to go into, I was like, I want to go into this world. What's university like? And then I met somebody, and I spent 5 years with them, who then went to university a few weeks later. And I was like, tell me what are middle class people like, and have they got first names, and why do they always wear odd socks, and and don't get the haircut when they go to university, and sort of have this rebellious streak. So I was just fascinated. I was like, I've never met these people. I don't understand how it all works. So you start to learn more things and realise you could do that. You if you dare to try something, and it pays off to some degree, you can keep going and going again and going again. So yeah, seeding ideas, developing some skills, being around the right type of people, changing your culture, changing your mindset, and then you really get going. And then that toolbox, it turns into many toolboxes, that turns into many, many advanced toolboxes. And everything I've done is sort of linked to the idea of, talk about meta skills, advanced skills that can take you above and beyond yourself, so you can do something that you didn't think was possible. What are they called?
Meta skills.
Yeah, so there's technical skills, which are, sort of, it could be things that you do with your hands, a technical job, or typing and other things. So there's practical skills, but meta skills are the skills above. You might call them advanced skills, but meta is above. So these are the skills you need to develop the skills that you need. So if you start to think about reflective practice or critical thinking or clear thinking or elements of mindfulness, or even, which I've been talking to people this week about cultural competencies. I had a conversation today. We talked to someone on social media who was from Nigeria, and the idea of what important and first and second name is in different cultures, and just exploring that with a member of staff to say that, remember that we have Christian names, that's very Western, and someone else might have another name that's different. Cultural competency, being aware of that the world's all different, gives you wisdom to realise what's important in one culture is just an idea handed down to someone else, and another culture has a different idea. So therefore, culture is a way of examining the world, and it doesn't mean it's right or true. It just means that's one perspective. And if you start to have 10 different perspectives of the world, you've grown your knowledge. You also being able to stand back from it and examine it, and be curious, and realise that someone just shook the snow globe of the earth up, and it's settled in a very particular way by random acts. It's not true. It's just there because of postcodes or culture or countries or accidents and other things. And we can choose to opt in or opt out of them type of things.
So I need to go back to this meta skills thing. You described it there as a set of skills to help you develop a set of skills. You compared them to practical skills or technical skills, which are things that you could, for example, do with your hands, or you learn how to do things. These are a set of skills which are a level above. Now, you, as a chartered psychologist, I'm sure you're aware of self-help. The gurus out there, whether they're on the internet or in books. Now, what I would say is a lot of the ideas in self-help books are very, very practical. They're around taking ice baths, getting out of bed and making it at a certain time, discipline, etc., etc. Now, these meta skills, if people understood that there was a way to develop meta skills, so they could then develop the practical skills they needed to change their lives internally, rather than just following a book that says, do this, do this, do this, and they're not really believing or understanding internally why they're doing it, because if they hadn't had the skills, already within them to develop them in the first place, then, why would they? How can people develop their advanced or meta skills so they can then understand themselves better and, internally implement the necessary changes or skills to change their life?
Yeah, there's some really good things you could do instantly. So one is perception, perspective. So that's just one thing you can do, is to think, the way I see the world is my perception. This is a set of beliefs, and I'm seeing the world through my lens. And then just look at perspectives of other people. It could be people of different ages, different gender, definitely from different countries. How would they see the situation that you're seeing? And as soon as you start to do that, you're freeing up that mental framework to see different perspectives rather than you alone. That alone is the basis of wisdom building, which is a very high level skill that you can develop just by allowing yourself to see the world differently, and then be aware that what you are emotionally buying into, your strong perception, it's a whole host of things. You've been conditioned to do that. But you can then reduce that emotion a bit and unlock it. It doesn't mean you have to give it up, but just unlock it. It's called clear thinking. Clear thinking is the ability to put it to one side and then to continue. It doesn't mean it goes. It just means I want to see it from... We might look at the world. Today the conversation I've had is around seeing the world from an atheist and a spiritualist and a religious, different religions perception as well. And just realising that they've all got lots of pros and cons around them. And, you could get into the argument of what is the ultimate truth, or you could really get into what other skills, what abilities will it give us, what experiences, and how pleasant or unpleasant are some of them people who really hold on to them. So any type of fundamentalism, we agreed in this conversation, was really bad. Anything, atheists or any other particular religion. But something spiritual might look at connection and communion, seems to be really wholesome regardless of what type of spiritual practices were going on. So you're really starting to have conversations all of a sudden. You're just finding lots of things, and you can hold on to them and explore them. So perception, perspective is just one of them. Critical thinking skills, which most people would have learned some if you've done a GCSE or an A level. You can Google it. It'll give you the top 10 different ways of doing critical thinking. Contrast evaluation. Very, very like simple things. Like it's just working out. Is this a good film? Is this a good song? Is this a good movie? You've talked earlier. Is this a good meal? Is this a good photograph? And then tell me why, and then do that more and more, and you become very effective. Like practice-based was what I work in, the practice-based approach. If you do that every day for 5 minutes, the accumulative effect over a year is immense. So critical thinking, evaluating, comparing, contrasting, assessing is one thing that we all do to some degree. Just keep practicing and talk to other people about it. Perception, perspective taken is another one. Wisdom, if you think, okay, I'm going to be asked this question, I'm going to answer it as a 16-year-old, a 35-year-old, a 70-year-old, a male, a female, and you obviously won't get it all right. You would start to see the world slightly different, and that then starts to show that there's different ways of seeing the world. These are meta skills where you start to stand back and become objective, not subjective, objective, less emotional, and being able to sort of examine the world. I'm intrigued. I'm an anthropologist. Just like that, David Attenborough goes and looks at animals around the world or environments. We should do it to people and culture and businesses and ideas, and we should go in and think like that. All right, explore what is going on here. Tell me about that. What can you learn about it? What can what insights can you gain from that? It's just a set of experiences with a set of skills that once you do it, they both start to interact with each other, and you become more effective over time.
So I want to ask you two questions, or a two-part question. First one is on the back of all of that. It might be that you've got a completely different answer, but we'll see. So, if you could communicate with somebody who was in a similar position to you, which is perhaps you've come from a less than privileged background and you're out in the, as you've described, wilderness, whatever that might look like today, what would you suggest that they could do? What one thing can they do that would change the trajectory of their life?
Yeah, I think there's...
I don't mean go to the job centre or go to school or enroll in... I mean with what can they learn?
I think that is... It's within the answer is you can learn. We live half-life. All of us live a half-life. We don't reach anywhere near our full potential. So realising that you can make some changes that can make a difference. You can start to do something today. If you go and, if you can't run and you learn to run, you'll be panting after 30 seconds and it'll be burning and painful. But if you do that over a week, it's 2-3 minutes in. You can make these differences. If you read the dictionary, start off with words that you understand, and you can add on and look for more complicated and difficult words and think about them. You just accumulate. You are not fixed. You will, if you, regardless of what you do, you've got a bunch of calendars in front of you. You can decide what happens on them calendars this year, which is a couple of weeks left, next year, the year after. So if you've got 5 calendars in a row, what do you want to achieve? What do you want? And it's going to happen anywhere. But if you do these minute changes, and some of it might be about discipline, some of it might be about reading more, some of it might be about thinking more, some might mean just because, which is not very good for this podcast, I get asked a question doesn't mean I have to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
Try to be quiet occasionally and say how difficult it is. It's really hard. We're full of opinions because you might not know anything that's worth talking about. You might be able to repeat something that someone else has said. What do you think? What do you really know? And if that takes you 6 months or a year to work out, that's okay. You can be different. Time will happen. What happens during that time is partly up to you. And if you don't make a plan for your life, someone else will.
Yeah.
So start to think, if anything, raise your aspirations. Start to up the bar a little bit more of what you can do. And you can do it. There's no doubt. If you talk about this Flynn effect. If you go into management, you go and do management for 10, 15 years, your IQ jumps up by about 15 points. It's a well-known phenomenon. And it's just because you're dealing with lots of complicated things over time. So it's like using that muscle a lot. It's going to improve it. So it's going to happen. Do you want to direct your life? Are you happy for other people to direct it that you might know? Or from a distance, who might be writing people off? And Rise is about rising up and improving aspirations and supporting enterprises to do things more effectively,
and changing beliefs
and things. So it's part and parcel of that. So that's why we do what we do. We're really passionate about that. But it's possible, and there's evidence. Really fast, you can get the evidence, and then you can't deny it and think, actually, yes, I do know a little bit more. I can run further. I can read more. I can make more friends. I can be quiet. I can reflect more. I can improve the way I think. I can improve my critical thinking. Maybe I could be a better person. Maybe I could be nicer, happier, more positive. I could make someone else feel happier. I could go and do something in the world that would make an impact. And if I do that more, it makes more of an impact.
Yeah. It's really interesting, this, because I think what I was kind of trying to ask at the very beginning of the conversation, and this in different terms, because we hadn't got onto meta skills yet, was why did you have the meta skills from an early age to be able to assess where you were, and then decide that you wanted to change them and develop the necessary skills to be able to do so? That's kind of what I was asking. Where did you develop those if you had got, disappeared from education and hadn't really, or shouldn't really have had them, which I think we have answered. But I think you then communicating that with another version of yourself who might not have had those meta skills to suggest, look, your belief system is broken. And this applies to everybody who might be in a similar situation. But your belief situation is broken. If you can fall back on your values and your values that you believe in, then those are the seeds from which a tree will grow that should help you in skills and in belief to direct you on the appropriate path in your life. So is it an idea to, when people are lost, for them to fall back on what they actually believe? To help start that journey, is that? Yeah,
I'm interested in lots of theories about this. One's grit, the idea that someone's gritty, they're determined, perseverance. And when they've examined grit, they found three things, but two main things. Obviously, perseverance, that someone becomes disciplined.
Discipline, yeah.
The obviously can set a goal and work towards it. But the most important thing, which no one was expecting, was character. It's called conscientiousness in the research. And conscientiousness is about going back to a set of values, about doing the right thing, even if you don't feel like if you're a bit tired or fed up or it's too much hard work. So conscientiousness is about character. This is what my research was exploring, about character. And your character is about you and the story you tell yourself and the one that you want to be, and a set of values, and also explore them values, which might be hard work, be honest, and self-improvement, trying to read more and trying to do more and learn every day. If you've got that commitment to doing them things, you start to become clear. As you said, you can always fall back on them, and it's an internal moral compass, which
foundation.
Yeah, foundation, and it doesn't mean that you will do them things all the time. In sports psychology, they might say it's the 80-60 rule. So when you're at your best, you're about 80%. You're high performing, but when you're at your worst, you might be 20%. The idea is to get you 20% to 60%. So you start performing between 80 and 60. So it doesn't mean that you ever get 100. It just means that you stop.
Never perform less than 60.
Yeah, and I mean, if you do that, I mean, you could use that stat in any sport or any profession,
any discipline,
anything, and you will see someone who's high performer. And it doesn't mean they're the best, but what it does mean is they're consistently good. I mean, being consistently good is powerful. And that's what we then go, oh, they're a genius or they're a superstar. They're not. The consistency is number one, isn't it? If you want to be, any team, football, Premiership, can beat any other team on the day. We won't get into who you spot. And
I was about to mention Dennis Irwin when he started talking about consistency, but yeah.
But it is at the end of it. It's about who's consistent over that season, but any team can beat anyone else. But if you would just keep consistent, I know it happens a lot. There's a lot of it's difficult time at the moment, but it goes back to that consistency for players. Players are more consistent than other players, and managers who are more consistent, and teams who are more consistent, and it just pays off. And that's like being consistent in your own life. And aim for slight improvements over a long period of time. So don't get caught up with gurus, fads, quick fixes. It's like, okay, let's take 6 to 12 months at a time. Peter Drucker is a management guru, says that you should look at what you want to achieve over the next 12 months. You should write it all down, and then you should go out and do that. And then you should look back at what you did, and you should look at what you thought was going to happen and what did happen and what the variance is between the two, and examine that and reflect on it. And that influences your next year and your next year. So I know that I'm working through certain projects at the moment and have a plan for 5, 6, 7, 8 years' time, if I'm still around. And that's what I'm working on. So it's like, okay, so how will I be better next year and then the year after? Then keep a diary, keep a journal, keep a record, keep an audio, keep a video. So you can go back and think, this is what I was saying this year. I've been consistent with these ideas and I've dropped these, self-deluded or bad practices or bad habits. I've got rid of that, or reduced the bad habits, so...
I think there's a lot of practical skills that you can, and tips and habits that you can develop, but I keep coming back to this idea because I know that I've done it myself, when trying to give something up or start something and you don't have that fundamental foundation within you that allows you to be disciplined or not disciplined, or if you don't really care or if you don't believe it, then all of those things is an absolute recipe for disaster, for failure. So all of these, the practical things of writing things down, I can't remember the guru that you referenced there, but these particular things that you've mentioned, they sound like twinned with the meta skills that you mentioned. They would be like formidable tools. They would be really powerful. Even it might be that they help you develop them. I think what is difficult out there is there's so much information it is information. There's so much content and information out there where people are looking for, as you've described, like a magic bullet, a simple solution to their, whether it's a problem, their situation, whether they want to improve. And it all seems to be about practical things that you can do. Now, my thinking around that, speaking about foundations and using that building analogy, is you can go and stick this roof on or build this nice window, but without this foundation in place, all you're doing is cosmetic work, like you're papering over cracks, and fundamentally this won't continue. Unless you follow this book for the rest of your life, and you're effectively basing your life on somebody else's book, unless, and I know, don't get me wrong, there's religions based on that, but unless you do that, you don't have this foundation within you to support this kind of these habits, the change there. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get out of the conversation here, is what can people do within them that has allowed the gurus to develop these things themselves? Because it wasn't a magic tree where people plucked these practical skills from, was it? What we're talking about is things that people have had the capacity to develop within themselves, or already existed in themselves. And yes, they're able to pass them on in these books, like, oh yeah, do this, this, and this, and then you'll succeed. Oh, that's cool. What if I stop practicing what's in the book? Where do I go back to being shit? Like, that's kind of what I've got from this conversation has been really, really, really valuable to me. Not somebody with any real experience or understanding of that level of. Would you class that as psychology? Is that part of psychology?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's part of psychology and something, but it's multidisciplinary. So I'm interested. I study. That's why it took me such a long time. Psychology, management, education, and I try to put these things together. And I think the skill, if you develop critical thinking skills, you can start to think, okay, let's evaluate everything I listen. So as soon as I hear something really exciting or a brand new book, and I'm thinking, this is amazing, this is the answer, this is definitely it, I then think it's wrong. I will work out which bits of it are wrong, and it will take time, and there will be exaggerations or misconceptions. That person's got something wrong, and that's what's called a scientific practitioner. You have a hypothesis and you have a null hypothesis, and your job is to prove the null hypothesis right. And if you can't, then you accept the hypothesis. So basically, every single guru is flawed. There's gaps. Just look for them and accept them, and then put them closer to the earth. Still read, still take. But gather, and then, to sort of build your toolboxes up, and then think, what do I discard? What do I keep? What do I discard? What do I keep? What do I discard?
Don't have a fundamentalist approach to it there.
Yeah, and read more. So I read psychology, and I read sociology, attack and psychology, which I'm really interested in, and I think it's fascinating. And I'm interested in anthropology, I'm interested in philosophy. So I'm interested in different perspectives and realise, okay, how do I put all these things together? How do we see them? What is the flaws? Each profession you could go into is limited. It's got flaws in as well. So don't think, I'm a psychologist, the best thing in the world. It's looking at sociology. Look at the economics. Look at business and management. Look at education. Look at philosophy. So it's all of them got something to add, and broaden your horizon. Speak to different people, listen to different things, read a variety of books. Don't ever just hang on and tightly grab onto something. Just explore it and think, this is good, and I wonder what's next. I wonder why eventually I dislike this person or this idea. It's like it's time limited. So it's that space and objectivity, not to become. Don't buy the T-shirt immediately and become a disciple. It's like, right, this eventually will fade. And if it doesn't, well, that's brilliant.
Maybe there's something in it.
There might be. Ryan Holiday talks about this. Like, if something's, he says, buy the best-selling book a year later, and if people are still talking and reading it, it's worth reading. If not, give it up, because there's loads of classic, big-selling books that no one ever reads ever again. Yeah,
you'll end up throwing everything out of your house, won't you?
Yeah, just wait, and then read it. And that's someone who reads a lot, who knows. What do you read? I said that today. I asked that question to someone randomly today. I was like, who's your favourite author and why? And I found out a Hungarian called Tiberius. It was amazing. Never heard this in my life. So I always ask weird questions and get interesting responses, and that feeds me. It's like I keep going. I'm like I'm curious, and I'm more curious all the time.
That's good. So the second part of the question I asked a good half an hour ago around what you would say to somebody who's in a similar position to where you were, how you would motivate them out of that. I want to ask a similar question, but to somebody else. I want you to then ask I want to ask you a similar question around somebody else. Let's say, now we know that there are people out there looking for, as we've mentioned, this magic bullet, that looking to improve themselves, looking for solutions, for guidance and things like that. Now, we've discussed quite a lot, and my takeaway is meta skills and the development of them. But I want to ask you directly, if people are looking to improve themselves, what would you tell them to do? So
it would be read, and if people have difficulties with reading for whatever reasons, usually you'll get an audio, or if you Google, you'll get a talk about it. So if there's something if you're interested in critical thinking, you can get a 6-minute video, a 3-minute video, a 30 seconds description, an audio, and you get a fact sheet. There's so much there, and then take it up, but be committed to doing it. So if I'm saying to someone, the most important thing about hope is you've got to believe it can be better and it can be different. And hope breaks down to 2 things. One is planning, so I can plan something, and then I've got the agency to carry out the plan. So hope is actually something quite practical, but it's also a belief of I can get through this, it'll be better. So inspiring someone, connecting with them, and getting them, the relationship really is to make them feel like they can get through the next day, the next hour, and feeling that, what, you've listened and you've given me your time and you're connecting to me and you seem really interested in me, which goes back to mattering. Mattering is about adding value. So I want to add value to this conversation, and then hopefully you add value to me, or we add value to our listeners. Is that there's a really big psychological effect by giving value to someone, which is listening and validating them. So if you want to do something for that person, touch them if you can, and if you don't feel comfortable, is do things that make them feel like you've just hugged them, by really making them feel like you really listened, you really cared, you're really interested. And then during that process, it will rekindle the energy that will keep them alive. And I think that matter and adding value is key. Hope. And then some practical things. Read. Google a couple of things. Go and meet people. Have conversations. Go to the library. There's a library in nearly every town. There's free books there to go and take out and read. And ask a librarian, what should I read if I want to improve? And then tell them what you want to improve. They're there. Then work on that.
Thanks. It's the reason I asked the second is people have people who are at the point of wanting to change let's say a different audience to people who aren't even aware that they need to or can. But just to go back to the beginning, a lot of the things you discussed within your own life is the reason that we are sat doing this podcast right now, to change beliefs, frames of reference, so people can understand and believe and hope and achieve that the things that they want to do are doable by themselves without any magic bullets. So thanks again, Iain. I'm sure we'll have to have a longer discussion about the time you spent in the wilderness, and ask more probing questions. I haven't talked a lot. I mean, for me, because I've been very interested. I'm sure other people listening will be as well. So thanks again.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks everyone.